What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel, and today we're going to be doing something completely different than anything I've ever really done on the channel so far. As some of you may know, today, or at least the day this video is uploaded, marks exactly 1 year since the launch of Star Wars Battlefront 2, and because of that I thought I'd do a year-long review of the game so far, covering both the good and the bad that came with the game, all the content we've received so far, as well as a general feel of the community at the time of each release. I've spent God knows how many hours so far going back through old patch notes from every single update and writing down what we received, how the community felt, and a bunch of stuff like that, so hopefully I have managed to get all the content and dates correct. Now, as I'm sitting down to record this, I can tell it's going to be an extremely long video, but there is a point as to why I'm actually making this video. I'm not just going to go through all the content and list it off and then just finish it there. There is actually a pretty important message to get across that you will see towards the end of the video, so despite how long it does go for, hopefully a lot of you guys will make it all the way to the end. So with all that out of the way, you guys sit back and relax and let's get stuck right into it. So starting off obviously at the launch of the game, and I think most people probably know how this went down, however I will try and paint the picture as well as I can for those of you who didn't happen to be around at the launch of the game. The reveal for Battlefront 2 was really decent as far as I can remember. The trailer, which you can see on screen now, is really well made, and the hype around the game leading up to launch was absolutely mental. Seeing Maul and Yoda in the trailer made so many people, including myself, lose our minds, and it was fair to say that the hype train for Battlefront 2 was full steam ahead. Unfortunately, with the release of the beta, that hype train pretty much came to a complete stop, as we all kind of realised that while the gameplay was really well done, there was a bit of an elephant in the room in terms of the loot box drama that had unfolded very quickly. There was the whole loot box system in place that was pretty much a pay to win system, as you could pay real life money to get faster access to better equipment and star cards for your troops and heroes, meaning anyone could pay a little bit of money to instantly be slightly better equipped than anyone who wasn't able to purchase the loot boxes. This caused probably the biggest uproar that I've ever seen over a video game, not only in the Battlefront community but just in the gaming community in general, as pretty much every gaming community came together as one and fought back against EA and their whole loot box system. Now, to our surprise, EA actually came out and decided to completely remove the pay-to-win system, with an apology to the fans and a promise that there would never be a pay-to-win system in Battlefront 2 again. It did feel like a great victory for the fans at the time, and with all that out of the way, the game launched on exactly this day last year, November 17th in 2017. The actual base content in the game was really decent as far as I'm concerned, and I feel like most of the community would agree with me on that, although I have heard plenty of people say that they didn't actually think that there was enough content either. We had 14 heroes, 11 large-scale galactic assault maps, 16 blasters, 5 game modes, and a whole bunch of star cards as well. There was also the campaign, which was highly requested, and although it wasn't terrible, it definitely wasn't really great either. They advertised the campaign as an Imperial side of the story, however, spoiler alert, halfway through the campaign the main character changed sides to join the rebel cause, which really pissed off a lot of the community, seeing as we all thought we would be finally getting an Imperial style campaign. Now, like I said, a lot of people say that the base content wasn't very much, but at least in my opinion, 11 large scale maps and 14 heroes was more than enough for the launch, as we all knew that there would be more to come in the future, although to be fair, we did think it would come a lot faster than it has. There was another issue at launch which revolved around the heroes, in that they actually cost credits to unlock when the game first launched, so that was definitely a downside to the heroes, and the community didn't take this very well at all. Overall, due to the pay-to-win drama, the launch was a bit of a disaster, to put it very lightly, and the game is still suffering from that to this very day. Like I said, at least in my eyes, the base content of the game was a good amount of content, but even then, the drama at launch completely outweighed the game itself, and overall, the launch was definitely seen in a very negative light. Now, moving on to December, and this was definitely a pretty solid first update for the game, and putting the drama of the launch behind us, this was actually a pretty positive look for the future of the game. We received the Crate Galactic Assault map, Finn, Captain Phasma, and Tali Lintra's Starfighter, alongside the Dakar map for Starfighter Assault as well. We also received a season challenge in which you could choose your side as the Resistance or the First Order, and then complete challenges for the side that you chose, leading to some pretty nice rewards at the end of the month. As simple as that may sound, this was actually a really fun idea from DICE, and everyone seemed to love it, including myself, so it is a bit of a shame that we haven't had anything similar since launch. On top of that, we also got some DLC for the campaign as well, which overall was actually pretty decent and probably got received better than the actual base campaign itself. Overall, December was a really decent update considering we were only 1 month in, and it gave the fanbase a lot of hope heading into the future of the live service. January saw very little content, however we had just received the December update, plus the game was only less than 2 months old, so I don't think anyone was really expecting a whole lot of content anyway. We received a small variant of the crate map for Blast, as well as Iden's TIE Fighter for Starfighter Assault, and that was pretty much all we received for the whole month. Now, the stuff they added wasn't necessarily bad, but in my opinion, Iden's TIE should have been there at launch considering she was the main character of the campaign, and the smaller crate map probably should have been released alongside the Galactic Assault map as well. Like I said though, we were only a month or two into the game, so people seem to be okay with this for the most part, and overall no one really complained a whole lot about January's update. We did receive a whole lot of bug fixes and improvements as well, which is obviously to be expected for a new game like this, most of which were pretty big changes such as some changes to Palpatine's base HP and a bunch of big changes similar to that. Now moving on to February, and this month was really very similar to January in terms of the lack of content we received. Kashyyyk, Hoth, Endor, Crate, Jakku and Death Star 2 were all added to Arcade, which I guess was a good thing. However, it's pretty strange that they weren't there from the launch, so you can't really call that content, at least not in my eyes anyway. We did receive a new temporary game mode called Jetpack Cargo, which for the most part was pretty well received, although it was only on Tatooine, so unfortunately it did get boring extremely quickly. It did also have a few broken mechanics that meant games would go on for hours without ending, so despite the game mode being pretty fun, it did definitely have its downsides as well. They also announced the release of the Hoth skins for Luke, Han and Leia, which would be unlocked through challenges. Now, the way they did these challenges was pretty strange, to be honest. There were 3 challenges, 1 per weekend, so essentially it took 3 weeks to unlock a skin, which was pretty annoying, but at the end of the day they are really good skins and they were free, so I guess we can't really complain too much there. Again, there was a whole lot of bug fixes and improvements this month as well, so despite the lack of content, there was still a positive side to the update as well. Overall, I'd say this month went down pretty similar to how January went down. We were all pretty disappointed in the lack of content. However, as I said, the game was still fairly fresh, so we all just accepted the update and looked forward to more content in the coming months, or at least so we thought anyway. Now, March saw probably one of the most positive updates in the whole lifespan of the game, with the pay-to-win focused progression system being removed and replaced by a much more rewarding system. Rather than randomly upgrading characters, it was now about playing as specific characters and vehicles to level them up, which was something that the community had begged for, and to finally receive it was a massive positive for the game. They also added Bespin to the smaller game modes, which was one of the fan favourites from Battlefront 2015, so even though it was a reused asset, it was still a good addition to the game. They also removed the credit payments to unlock the heroes, which overall was a good thing when I look back at it now. However, at the time there was a lot of complaining about this, seeing as a lot of us had spent over 150,000 credits to unlock the heroes, and for them to be now free to use was kind of a slap in the face for everyone that had grinded the credits to unlock them. Overall though, it was a change for the better now that new players could use the heroes free of charge, and at least for me, even though I was still pretty annoyed that we had wasted all those credits on the heroes, I did realise it was more of a positive than a negative change, and I was happy to put it behind me considering it would have a positive impact on the game overall. One negative to this month was the explosive shot glitch that made the game almost unbearable at times, but overall it was a very positive update, and overall the community was very pleased to have finally had a proper progression system in the game. Moving on to April, and at the time this was easily the best and most positive update we had received so far, although the announcement of it wasn't really received well at all. They announced the release of Ewok Hunt, and initially everyone was going absolutely crazy, seeing as this really wasn't anything like what we had all wanted. At this point everyone was dying for some more Clone Wars content, so when they announced a small game mode focused on one map from the original trilogy, everyone lost their minds, and to be honest it was received very negatively from the community. With that being said, when it actually arrived, pretty much everyone changed their mind, as the game mode was a whole lot of fun, and we did also receive 40 regular trooper skins and 8 hero skins as well. So despite the initial drama, this was easily one of the best updates we had received since the launch of the game. The only real downside to the April update was that Ewok Hunt did die off pretty quickly. It was a really fun game mode, but it got repetitive very quickly, so as good as the game mode was, it did also leave a lot to be desired at the same time. Now, in May they announced the Han Solo season, and as far as I'm concerned, this is where the game took a turn for the worse in terms of the community's reaction to this announcement. At this point we were all screaming for more Clone Wars content, and for them to announce a Han Solo season, it was definitely pretty disappointing. Obviously it pretty much had to happen. The movie was coming out in May, so obviously this was the smartest thing for them to do. But despite that, the community didn't really take it very well, and in my eyes this was a real turning point for the Battlefront 2 community. We had received the progression system update and the Night on Endor update in the 2 previous months, so the community was finally positive heading into May, and for this announcement to come, it really couldn't have been any worse timing. We received Jabba's Palace, 1 skin each for Lando and Leia, which were pretty decent skins, Starfighters in arcade mode, as well as Hero Showdown, which was probably the one thing that people were really happy with from this update. Looking at the content now, it really wasn't bad at all, but it just really wasn't what the community wanted, and there definitely wasn't enough content to call it a season either, so that did piss off a lot of people as well. Overall, this was probably one of the most negative months in the game's lifespan, and although the solo content did need to come due to the release of the movie, it was definitely not received well by the majority of the community, and it was definitely a pretty disappointing month for the game. Now moving on to June, and this marked the second part of the solo season, which again really wasn't received very well by the community overall. With that being said, before the actual release of the solo content, we had EA Play, and this was where they finally announced that we'd be receiving more Clone Wars content after all this time. The hype train was full steam ahead again, and honestly there's probably never been a more positive period of time in Battlefront 2's lifespan than the weeks following the announcement. Reddit, Twitter and YouTube especially were plastered with Clone Wars videos, concepts and ideas for the future of the game, and finally the community were all looking forward to the future of Star Wars Battlefront 2. In terms of the actual content we received this month, we got 5 new skins for Lando, Han and Chewie. We got the Kessel Spice Mines, which was a really well made map, plus we also got extraction added to the game, and a complete overhaul of the menus as well. So overall, even though no one really wanted the solo content, this month's content was actually really decent, although again it definitely wasn't enough content to warrant it being called a season, even combined with the part 1 content as well. With the prior announcement of the Clone Wars, the community was again for the most part pretty positive. So overall, June was a pretty decent month for Battlefront 2, more so in terms of the positivity rather than the actual content that we received. July was a month that honestly isn't really worth mentioning at all. All we received was Hero Starfighters and some saber combat changes, so this month was a very quiet month, and although June had been pretty positive for the most part, the hype train from the Clone Wars announcement was dying off, and the game was almost in limbo while we were waiting for some more content. Not a really negative month by any means, but definitely not a positive month either. Moving on to August on the other hand, and this month was really one of the worst months since the launch of the game, with some of the drama that unfolded. This month we received our first 2 clone skins, the 41st and 327th core skins, Naboo Hangar, an end of round stats screen, as well as purchasable emotes and victory poses. The clone skins were fine for the most part. Naboo Hangar was a nice addition to arcade, however the end of round stats and purchasable emotes is something that really should have been in the game since launch, so the devs really didn't deserve any praise for adding them to the game almost 9 months after the launch of the game. Now, on top of this, there was the whole Droideka image drama, and honestly, this was probably the biggest hit that the game had taken since the pay-to-win drama at the launch of the game. I'm sure you all know what happened, but for those who don't, there was an image that was released to promote the new skins, and in the background, we could see a very clear image of a Droideka, which is something that we've all been wanting in the game since day one, and to be honest, it really should have been there since day one, but that is not really the point. This picture led so many people to believe that they were hinting at droidekas coming with the upcoming Clone Wars content, and then for them to come out and say that it was a mistake was a serious slap in the face and had a massive impact on the content that we received in August, seeing as most people had completely given up on the game at this point. Overall, this was again a massively negative month for the game, and at this point there really wasn't much more the community could take before completely giving up on the game. September had a much more positive reaction with the addition of the new squad spawn system, as well as the 91st and 104th skins as well. Obviously that's not a whole lot of content, so overall it was slightly disappointing, but knowing that we'd be getting Grievous next month was enough to keep us excited, and the squad system was a massive hit with the community as well. This was another thing that should have been in the game since launch, although at this point most people were just happy to finally receive it, and it did build up well into the next month as we knew that it would be a pretty decent addition leading into the upcoming Clone Wars content. Overall, this month was pretty positive, however the drama that had occurred the month before was still definitely hanging over the game, so this month definitely didn't make up for the mistakes made in August. Finally, October had arrived, and this was always going to be one of the most exciting times for the game so far, and it definitely lived up to the high expectations that was set. In October, we finally received General Grievous, and this was by far the most hyped I had seen the community since the reveal trailer. Now, he has been fairly buggy since launch, so a lot of people were pretty negative about that, and they had every right to be negative about it, but the positivity still outweighed the negativity, and it was definitely a fine addition to our collection. We also received some really good improvements to the squad system, as well as a health on kill card for every single hero in the game. So on top of Grievous, we also received some really solid and much needed improvements to the game as well. This has easily been the best update so far, and even with Grievous being as buggy as he is, the hype for the future of the game is finally back to where it should be, or at least close to where it should be anyway. So now we are finally back in November, which marks exactly 12 months since the launch of the game. Now at the end of this month we will be receiving a large scale Geonosis map, Obi-Wan Kenobi, as well as a few skins, 3 extra vehicles to be used on Geonosis, and possibly some other maps too. The 2 12th Battalion clone skins, plus I'm sure a lot of bug fixes and improvements as well. As I'm recording this, there hasn't been a whole lot of confirmation in terms of the Obi-Wan skins we'll be getting, so what you can see on screen is just my rough guess of what those skins might be, but by the time this video goes up, all of that stuff may have already been confirmed. This is definitely shaping up to be another really positive month for the game, and for it to be 2 super positive months in a row after the year we've had is such a good feeling, knowing that the game is finally headed in the right direction. Looking back at the last 12 months of the game, it has been an absolute roller coaster of emotions from start to finish. So many ups and downs, and although most of it has definitely been down, it's good to know that we're finally getting the game to a place where we'd all like it to be. Honestly, year 1 of this game has been nothing but a shit show in terms of how many times we've been let down by DICE and EA, and even though it's hard to tell at this point, I really do hope that they've at least learned from their mistakes and try to avoid similar problems heading into the future of not only Battlefront, but all their games as well. Obviously, there is still a whole lot of things missing for the game, and there are still plenty of bugs and issues, but from how terrible the game has been at certain points throughout the year, where we're at now is definitely a massive improvement from launch, and hopefully it only continues to get better with each month of content. As of right now, we don't really know too much about what's going to be happening in 2019. They have confirmed that the game will still be supported, but whether that means a whole extra year or just a few extra months, no one really knows right now, so hopefully we do hear something about that in the not so distant future. At the end of the day, the whole point of this video has been to try and show you guys that even though the game has had more than its fair share of failures and disappointments, we are finally getting the game that we want, even if it has taken a whole lot longer than we would have liked. Not to say that the last year can just be erased, obviously that year will go down as a terrible year for the Battlefront franchise, but the fact that the game still has a decent player base and a lot of loyal fans goes to show that we have been through the worst, and now hopefully it's time to reap the rewards of our dedication to the game. For any of you guys that are familiar with the Battlefield franchise, Battlefield 4 had one of the worst, if not the worst launch of all time, and the first year of that game was a complete shit show, just as this game has been as well. What happened with Battlefield 4 though is that the fans stuck with it, and the game eventually turned around to become probably the best game in the whole series, and still to this day is probably one of the most populated shooters that's out there. Now, I'm not saying that it's definitely going to happen with Battlefront 2, but at the end of the day, what is stopping something like that from happening? The only way that it definitely won't happen, however, is if we continue to hate on the game without actually offering anything constructive at the same time. I'm all for pointing out issues and shedding light on every single broken aspect of the game, but rather than straight up hating on the game without saying anything constructive, why not offer an idea as to how to fix these issues so that maybe the devs will get a better understanding of what we as a community want to see. With a bit of constructive criticism and support from us, plus some hard work from the guys and girls at DICE, there's absolutely no reason this game can't finally reach its full potential that I'm sure we all see in it. So anyway, that is going to be it for today's video, guys. If you have made it this far into the video, I really do appreciate you guys sticking around and listening to me rambling on. I thought it would be good to go back and look at everything that's happened throughout the year, because as negative as the year has been, it just goes to show that if we can make it through a year like that, then this next year is going to be a whole lot better. At least I definitely hope it is anyway. I'm sure you can see just how much work went into this video, so I would love it if you guys could like the video and share it around on Twitter or Reddit or something, and try and spread the word around the community that hopefully things will get better from here on out, and that criticism rather than hate is the only way this game is going to turn around. If you are new to the channel, then feel free to subscribe and make sure to turn on your notifications so you don't miss out on any more Battlefront 2 content. Thank you all so much for watching again. You guys have a great day, and I'll catch you all in the next one.